If only I could charge at home, but I live in a flat, so an EV is not for me. How many times have you heard this one? Dave takes it on, investigates the facts behind this and other statements used against EVs to see whether any are true. If you like this video, please subscribe so that you can be notified when we next release the one in the series. I wonder if any of the people who say this have actually heard themselves. They happily drive a petrol or diesel car, yet they cannot fill up at home. I've never heard of a house or flat with its own fuel pump. Why does it have to be different with an EV? Myths and rumours abound, and many people get the idea that if you can't charge at home, you can't have an EV. Well, let's find the truth. And I sincerely hope that none of them actually mean because I can't charge at home, it's impossible for me ever to own an EV. That's clearly ridiculous. I hope what they mean is that the cost and inconvenience of not being able to charge at home makes it uneconomical to own an EV. But is it inconvenient? Well, Tesla run an extensive network of superchargers. They're nearly all available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. A number of other charging networks also operate chargers, almost all available the same. In fact, there are over 42,500 electric vehicle chargers in the UK this year, and the number is growing rapidly. So the truth is that the vast majority of people live within a very short drive of an EV public charger. So you can live in the tallest flat in the world and have an EV. So what they really mean is that if I have to use public chargers, it is uneconomical to own an EV without that home charging. Is that true? But the only comparison I expect they'll make is EV versus fossil fuel, which is dearer. There's more involved than that in running costs. So, using prices valid on the 5th of June 2023 from the RAC, petrol is £1.41 a litre, diesel is £1.42. I'm not going to bore you with lengthy calculations. The formula I used is in the description below. An average diesel or petrol car doing an average of 30 miles per gallon will cost about 21 pence per mile, driven purely in fuel costs. 40 miles per gallon costs about 16p, 50 miles per gallon costs about 13p, and 60 miles per gallon costs about 11p. Now, I know many will say, well, on a recent journey, my car did 78.3 miles per gallon. Yeah, this is true. But unless we know the facts, we can't accept it. I could, for example, drive to the top of a very long hill, zero my trip meter, and then drive to the bottom and get a ridiculously high figure. What matters is the average miles per gallon over a long period, say a whole month or even a year. Very, very few cars can get 60 miles per gallon as an average. Specific journeys, yes. Over a whole year, no. Many really modern cars can regularly get 50 if driven with a little bit of care, and few cars, old or new, do less than 30 miles per gallon, usually restricted to the bigger, older cars used to commute with stop-start motoring. EVs are largely the same, only instead of miles per gallon, we use miles per kilowatt hour. The top, very best, most efficient cars are now achieving nearly 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Most modern EVs are between 3 and 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and the very worst get just over 2. A special mention here goes to the Hummer EV, which achieves 1.5 miles per kilowatt hour, but they're not on sale in the UK, luckily. Regarding prices, EVs have an absolutely massive, unbeatable offer available which no petrol or diesel car can even dream of matching. Today, 4th of June 2023, there is still a large number of totally free EV chargers available. These are located in hotels, restaurants, family attractions, and even street-side chargers. Also, some dealers offer their EV customers a free charge. And not just a slow 7 kilowatt. Hyundai locally offers a 50 kilowatt charger free. But these are widespread, so I'm ignoring these in this video. But certainly have a look around and see if you can find one locally. Well, for all you techies out there, I am aware that an EV charging session is not 100% efficient, and I've rounded up average prices by between 5 and 10% to cover this. Now, check through the latest EV charging prices that finds that chargers often have split tariffs, with a high price for peak hours, maybe between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the evening, and a cheap rate at all other times. Some Tesla superchargers have a third rate, overnight off-peak, which is even cheaper than the cheap off-peak rate. Prices for Tesla superchargers are all around 27p overnight, 39p off-peak and 53 peak. And that applies even in central London. In fact, it is in central London that the cheapest overnight cheap rate can be found. Non-Tesla chargers start from around 49 pence per kilowatt off-peak, but average nearer 70p off-peak. And some soar or rocket up to an astounding 85 pence per kilowatt hour. Well, this is probably the petrol equivalent to motorway petrol prices versus supermarket prices, and it should be treated as such. Do not ever, out of choice, fill up with petrol or diesel on a motorway, or ever at any EV charger that costs 85p. You would have to be mad. Having said all that, we can now compile a summary. I will make a full, comprehensive table available to all those who have subscribed to my channel, but here is a summary. Petrol average 30 miles per gallon costs 21p, 40 mile per gallon 16p, 50 mile per gallon 13p, and 60 mile per gallon 11p. EV non-Tesla charging average price 70 pence per kilowatt hour. 2 miles per kilowatt hour costs 30p, 3 mile per kilowatt hour 20p, 4 mile per kilowatt 18p, and 4.5 miles per kilowatt 16p. Tesla superchargers average 39p per kilowatt hour, and no Tesla does 2 or 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. The worst is around 3. So 3 miles per kilowatt hour costs 13p, 4 miles per kilowatt hour 10p, and 4.5 mile per kilowatt hour 9p. Out of interest, if you charge up at overnight off-peak rates only and have the best EV that does 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour, the cost per mile would be 6 pence. A petrol or diesel car would have to average over 110 miles per gallon to match that. So conclusion, if I was buying a new EV and I couldn't charge at home, I would definitely look at efficiency and the price it will cost me to charge it before I made my choice. For example, if you're leasing, a Tesla Model Y and a Ford Mach-E are almost identical monthly payments. But the Model Y does over 4.2 miles per kilowatt hour, while the Mach-E does 2.4 to 3. Also, a Mach-E at present cannot use all the superchargers, whereas the Model Y can. Whatever you choose or have chosen, petrol or EV, the cost to run per mile are significant. Most modern EVs are between 3 and 4 miles per kilowatt hour. Even with absolutely no access to home charging or Tesla Supercharge, they offer similar costs to petrol and diesel at something under 20 pence a mile. Always using the supercharger network with a very efficient EV can halve that cost. Living in a flat and not being able to charge at home definitely does not show a significant difference either way, petrol or diesel, purely depending on the car you choose. But you might be able to get 1 or 3 free charges each year at your favourite restaurant or while on holiday in a hotel or a holiday rental property. You can't do that with petrol. But it is true you'll not be able to get access to really, really cheap home charging, where the cost per mile is normally well under 5 pence. Wow. Well, thanks for watching Dave Takes It On. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have, please subscribe so you don't miss another episode in the series. And one of these will cover the statement, the national grid will collapse if all drive EVs. It can't cope, creating a huge economic and environmental problem. I'm Dave.